Hey team, I'm Alex from Zaxwerks. In this tutorial we'll be taking a look at how to recreate this 3D banner drop down look directly inside of After Effects, all in 3D using our plugin 3D Flag. So let's take a look at our final video. Alright, so that looks pretty sweet. We have, a lot of detail going in here. We have our dynamic cloth banners dropping into place with our big old water polo players and our Olympic logo and water in the background. So it's all there. So let's go ahead and figure out how it's all done. Okay, so we'll start off by creating a new composition right here. I will then click OK, 1280 by 720, that sounds good. Let's start off by getting all of our assets into our comp. So I just need our water background, and then we need our different player banners. We'll just drag those right into our comp and turn this layer into a 3D layer. Whoops, not all of them. Deselect just the top one, turn off the sound. And notice we have our water background that it's just, very simple water with the logo that has a little transparency to it. Then we have our different banners. We have Dan, we got some Peter, Dan, Peter, Sam, and we have our Tony Azevedo, the U.S. Olympian. So there we go. So we'll start off by creating our Tony banner. We'll turn everything off. Come up here to layer, create a new solid layer. Make sure it's the same size as your comp, and take your 3D flag effect and drag it right onto your solid. And now we have our flag, and right away we get some flag motion, but we're not going for a flag this time. We are going for a banner, because remember, 3D flag is just a cloth simulator. That's all it is. So so we can go up here, select set flag image to our water polo player banner Tony, and right away notice our flag or our banner is now resized to the size of our image. Except the only problem is it is being held to the flag on the left hand side, and we want it to be held on the top. So we'll come into our setup window by clicking this button right here and change this lock from left to top. And so right here, let's come back out of wireframe, and we see when we hit play it's locked to the top. However, also notice our pole is not to the top of our banner. You might be going, oh no, what happened? That's fine. It's just a number we have to change back inside of our effects control window inside of After Effects. So we'll go do that later. So ignore that right now. We're just taking a look at our flag and seeing how our flag acts with the wind. So so cool. So first things first, let's resize our image. We need to just make it bigger with width-wise and bigger height-wise. If you know the proportions of your object, definitely keep them. Otherwise, I'm just kind of doing it by eye. That looks good. It's just sort of a what looks good kind of thing. Cool. So now that we have that, notice how right here when I hit play, our object actually is being held, our flag is being held to our pole up here. So imagine there's a pole right here that has vertice points right here, right here, and right here. That's because this other lock area has corners and one center. So the corners and one center. Instead, we want it to be all the top edge points. So we can go all edge points, click that, and now it actually got locked to all the edge points right here. And that's exactly what we want. Let's turn it back to corners and one center, and we see how it's that, and turn it back to all edge points, and that's exactly what we want. So hope you guys saw that. Definitely a huge part in making it look more bannery like. So awesome. Now that we have that, let's go back to wireframe so we can take a look at our polygons. What wireframe does is it shows us all the different polygons of our objects. So this little triangle is a polygon, this triangle is a polygon, and these vertical and horizontal lines, let's jump in and do an area where we can see it very nicely. These lines going vertical and horizontal, not the diagonal lines, are meshing. That's what it's called. It's called meshing. So meshing splits up your flag into lines, and then these other diagonal lines give you an extra mesh count based on this meshing right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to increase the mesh count horizontally, because the more polygons you have, the smoother the mapping, the smoother the flag dynamics look. That's it. So let's increase this horizontal mesh count up to something like 40. And notice we have more lines going horizontally now. We can take a look here. So before we had like 20, now we have 40. And so you can take a look at that difference, a lot more lines. And then when we do a vertical mesh count, we want to actually go a lot higher than 40 because our banner is a lot taller than it is wider. So we're going to actually increase this to something like 90. And when we do that, we see we have a lot more lines, and now our rectangles have turned into cubes. There you go. And so all it's going to do is going to give us much nicer dynamics with the wind and better mapping of our materials and stuff. And so that's awesome. That's definitely what we want, and we'll leave meshing on the right. Because notice if I go to meshing left, all of our lines are now diagonal to the left, but we want it to the right because we're going to have a right angled wind. Cool. So now that we come down here, it's time to mess around with the cloth settings. The cloth settings are pretty much no for anyone who is not advanced. However, right now you're going to be walking through with me, and so I'm going to talk you through what each parameter does, and so you can learn and become advanced. That's the basics of this tutorial, becoming an advanced user. So either you can come up here, pick one of these cloth presets, stiff flag, loose flag, and most of the time this is what I pick. I just pick one of these and go on with my way. But if I want a very particular flag that I want it to stretch so much or not move around so much, I come in here and actually put in values myself. That's what we're going to do here. So cloth stretch, what cloth stretch is how much stretch is happening in your flag, how stretchy it looks. So these horizontal and vertical lines have so much stretch to them, and that's what this parameter affects. Cloth bend is how much the cloth can bend on top of itself, and so they'll bend over these different polygons. And then cloth shear will actually take these diagonal lines and how much stretching is happening upon the diagonal lines. So cloth stretch is horizontal and vertical, cloth bend is how much bending is happening, and cloth shear is the stretch among the diagonal lines. So there you go. Cloth weight is how heavy your flag is. So is it a heavy banner? Is it a light flag? We're going to have a heavy banner for this one. And then cloth conform is a theoretical mapping of how perfect your flag is going to look. So the lower the number, might seem a little confusing to you, but let me explain. The lower the number, the more jaggedy and less perfect your flag will look. The higher the number, the more smooth and amazing your flag will look. Just remember, the higher the number, the more rendering time. So that's what you have to watch out for, is don't put it too high because you're going to have really slow rendering time. And then air friction is how much the air affects your flag. Basic physics stuff. So let's go in here. We're going to increase our cloth stretch to something like 4. That's going to give it a little more stretch. Cloth bend is going to be something like 11, and cloth shear is going to be 22. These are just numbers that give it a nice bend in the wind. And then we're going to come over here and we're going to make the cloth weight 5, which is incredibly heavy. And notice all these nice lines right here are going to go away because our wind is now not affecting our flag as much. It still has some nice ripples to it, but they're not going to be crazy like a flag or anything. And then air friction, we're going to take down to 1 because I don't want the air affecting my banner, because I have a heavy banner. All right, so now as we're making our way down here, let's take a look at edge mass percentage. And edge mass percentage is a huge thing to know. What it is edge mass percentage has what edge mass percentage is so each flag has a different weight from the edge or from the middle of your flag. So the edges have different weight, middle have different weight. And so that's what this edge mass percentage is affecting. And so if the edge mass percentage is less than 100%, so like 90 is less than 100%, the edges are going to be affected more by the wind than the center part of your flag is, of your cloth. And so this is really good to have it less than 100 for something like a flag, because you want those rippling corners and to look really juicy and awesome. But for a banner, the heavy stitching and the heavy material, that's not realistic. You're not going to have those rippling edges. So you want the edge mass percentage to be very high. So we'll increase that by a lot. And then we're going to also leave alone internal scale. We don't need to affect that. And we're going to leave alone wind variation. And prevent self-collision is a great thing if your flag is intersecting itself. The problem is that the rendering time goes through the roof. So just be warned, don't use it unless you really have to. So there you go. All right, so now that we have all of those parameters, let's go back into our After Effects comp, click OK, and we have our flag with our flag pole. So let's put our flag pole into the position that we need. We'll come down here, put our pole position Y. So ignore the flag at the time, because remember the flag and the pole have a little offset right now. So we'll affect that. We'll change that. But come over to pole position Y, move that up in the Y direction to something like 350. Move it over in the X direction to like negative 215, and move it a little bit forward as well. And so there you go. So now you have your pole. Just looking at the pole, you have your pole in a nice position at the top of your page. And then we can go ahead and this flag position on pole Y, that's the offset we're seeing. We'll change that to 0, and our flag is now directly on our pole. Before we duplicate all of our flags, let's come over here, increase the flagpole length by a lot, so like 2,000, just so our flagpole is taking up our entire comp. And then we can increase the flagpole radius as well to like 6. And so just give it a little thicker flagpole, and we're good to go. Now let's go ahead and start our flag to have the up position to fall into place. So we'll come down here, and we're going to start with the starting position. What that's going to do is going to go to banner ready to drop. That's going to push our object up in the beginning. Let's go to the very beginning, and you see how it wants to curl up. Let's increase the amount, and notice how our object goes up with the increased amount. Let's create a camera so I can look at the side of our flag right here. Zoom out. Okay. Okay, and so notice when I have my flag layer selected, when I increase the amount, the object is pushed up. When I decrease it, it's pushed down. And then when I increase the tightness of the object, it becomes tighter. This bend becomes tighter. When I decrease it, it becomes a little looser. Okay, so let's increase that around 70, 80 or so, because we want it to still be a little tight, just not too tight, and we'll have it all the amount increased all the way to 100. And now when it drops down, it has nice wind dynamics, and it falls into place, and it looks awesome. There we go. Okay, last thing we need to do with this flag is we need to give it a different wind direction. And so right now our wind direction angle is faced 85, means that it is faced to the right, and the elevation of 5 means it's a little down, a little up. And so we want it to go down. The wind direction elevation, negative means down, positive means up. Wind direction angle means positive forward, negative backwards. Actually, I said it backwards. Wind direction angle, positive backwards, negative forwards. So we want it to have a sort of angle, like 25 or so for the backwards part, and then we want it to be faced almost all the way down, not quite, so we'll give like a negative 70. And now when our object falls into place, it has a nice backwards angle of the wind. Okay, so there you go. That's about it for that flag. And so now we can go ahead, we can duplicate our flag and change the image and be on our way. So let's go ahead, we'll rename this to be 3D flag Tony, and then we can duplicate it by edit, duplicate, change our flag image to Sam, and we can go ahead and just move it to the right. So we can take this number and let's go maybe like positive 40 or something, just to move it to the right. Okay, let's rotate our camera around. And then for right now, for working purposes, we're going to turn all of our 3D flag layers to draft mode. So we'll just double click this. I'm working in After Effects CC. That's just going to put this into draft mode, and what that's going to do is it's just going to give us a draft mode, OpenGL draft mode, without anti-aliasing of our objects. So our objects work a lot faster now, and when we're ready to render, we'll just switch it right back to final mode, and it's ready to go, and it looks awesome. There we go. Okay, so let's rename this layer to be 3D flag Sam. It's a little organization. Come up here, we can duplicate it again. And it could be 3D flag. Oh, what's the other guy's name? Let's go Peter. Okay, rename that to 3D flag Peter. And move it to the left. Let's go. It's negative 215 for the other one, so like negative, I don't know, 400. Let's see what that looks like. Oh, we just need a little more. Negative 500. A little too much. Okay, and then first things first, before we start duplicating the wrong things, let's go ahead and turn off our flagpole. Because right now our flagpole is just being put in the exact same spot for all three, and that's just going to take up extra rendering time. So we don't want that. We want to just turn off the flagpole for Peter and Sam. So we'll just put none for flagpole style, and we'll put none for flagpole up for top cap, and do the same thing for Sam. Okay, and then let's duplicate it one more time for our buddy Dan. BFF Dan. Okay, we'll rename it and change the image and then move it to the right. So I'm not doing this in any particular order. I'm just, saw the name, put them to the left and to the right. We can come down here to our position and let's go positive 275. Once again, I'm just doing this by eye, just trying to see where objects look good in 3D space. And of course, you can just move it around and do with it what you want. So there we go. All right. So notice one thing here. Notice how our Tony Azevedo flag is a lot shorter than Sam, Dan, and Peter. What happened here is our flag, our picture, the picture I made, is a little bit longer than the flag I actually want. So all we have to do is we can come in here to our Dan, open up the setup window, come to height, and change it back down to like 600. And then just do that for each flag that you want to resize. And it'll keep all of the same dynamics and everything for you, because it's definitely procedural and nothing, no harm, no foul, I guess, right? There you go. So let's do it one more time. Okay, so now that we have that all done, let's go ahead and turn on our background now. Make sure it's a 3D layer. And we can see that we have our flag in our background. And of course, when they animate, they all animate together. That's the problem though right now, is they're all animating together. So let's give it a little bit of a difference in drop. And so what we'll do is we'll just change the amount of roll that the flags have to make it a little variation. Give it a little give it a little variation. Give it a little organic look. So we'll go ahead, we'll click on Dan. Let's put these in order so we know what we're dealing with. It goes Dan, and then Sam, Tony, and Peter. Okay, so we can come over to Dan, come down here, and we can change the amount to like 90. Whoops. Change the amount to 90. Come to Sam, change the amount, maybe 80. And Peter, change the amount to like 90. So notice I left Tony at 100. So now, when our objects fall into place, our flags fall into place, they look a lot more organic and fun feeling. And this is definitely like a sports intro, trying to show off a team of some sort. I see it on TV all the time. So there we go. Let's go ahead and let's put in our regular camera and lights from the other from our other project. Since this is not a tutorial showing you how to create and animate cameras and lights in After Effects, I'm just going to go ahead and come over to our master and select these and hit Command-C on a Mac, Control-C on a PC to copy them, and come over here and paste them by Command-V or Control-V on a PC. I'll go ahead and I'll delete our other camera, and now when we come through, we get our nice animation falling into place. And so there you go. Of course, we can come here, we can turn these all back to final mode, and we have a very cool, awesome look. Look at that. Okay, so that's about it for this. If you have any questions, please email me directly at alexzaxwerks.com. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time.